Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki and here are the headlines we're tracking this hour. Sensex and Nifty declined for the sixth day in a row, losing over 2% just this week. Over 8 lakh crore rupees in investor wealth wiped out in the last 6 sessions. All sectoral indices declined this week. No respite for Adani stocks as the group loses over 21,000 crore rupees in market cap today. More than 12 lakh crore rupees wiped out in a month. Supreme Court refuses to gag the media from reporting on the Adani Hindenburg saga. After a surge during the pandemic, retail investors look beyond equities. Data shows National Stock Exchange has lost 38 lakh clients in the last 6 months. Daily average turnover in February is down 38% compared to last year. Zerodha's Nitin Kamath says new users have dropped and the company is finding it hard to generate revenue. National Company Tribunal stays insolvency proceedings against Zee Entertainment, issues notice to IndusInd Bank, who had filed the insolvency plea. Zee argues that they were the corporate guarantor for only a tranche of interest repayment facility on Citi's debt. Prime Minister Modi flags the risk to global growth due to high levels of debt in emerging economies at the G20 finance ministers meet in Bengaluru. Says trust in international financial institutions has eroded and calls on world leaders to bring back stability to global growth. Ukraine braces for possible fresh attacks as the Russian invasion completes a year. Zelensky tweets that 2023 will be the year of their victory. The United Nations General Assembly passes a resolution demanding Moscow withdraw its troops from Ukraine. China calls for a political settlement to end the war. Former MasterCard CEO and Indian-American Ajay Banga nominated by the US to lead the World Bank. US President Joe Biden says Banga is uniquely equipped to lead the bank at its critical moment. Supreme Court refuses to hear a PIL seeking menstrual leaves for female students and working women. Says the matter fell within the domain of policy. CGI says that if employers were compelled to grant menstrual leave, it may disincentivize them from hiring women at all. The court suggests that the petitioner approach the Ministry of Women and Child Development.
They only need encouragement and empowered to carry the business forward, because it is only ease of governance. Oh my God, the sky is the limit here.
Real estate tycoon KP Singh shares his blueprint for making India an infra powerhouse. Highlights that the government acquiring land and auctioning it out to private sector for development of townships. Right, let's start with the market action. Sensex and Nifty declined for the 6th straight day, even though the losses today were limited. Nonetheless, both major indices have lost 2.5% this week, erasing all the gains made in the previous 3 weeks. All in all, nearly 8.5 lakh crore rupees in investor wealth wiped out in the last 6 trading sessions. After a surge in retail participation during COVID, data shows investors are now looking beyond equities. National Stock Exchange has lost 38 lakh clients in the last 6 months. The daily average turnover in February is down 38% compared to last year's. Now, Zerodha's Nitin Kamath says that new users have dropped and the company is finding it hard to generate revenue.
Even in broking, I think I somehow feel that we've kind of hit a plateau. Because the new user growth has dropped, the existing users aren't really, adding more as such. So I think the big challenge is that while India is a large country, we're still a poor country, and the real problem to solve in this country is to kind of, get rich inclusively, get a lot more Indians, to a position where they can actually spend money.
Right, moving on, no respite for Adani stocks as they continue to fall and the group's market capitalization is now closer to 7 lakh crore rupees. It's exactly 1 month since the Hindenburg report raised several red flags, and since then, the stocks have taken a beating. 7 out of the 10 stocks ended in the red, losing more than 21,000 crore rupees in market capitalization. The group's value currently stands at just over 7 lakh crore rupees. Since the Hindenburg report was released, it has lost more than 12 lakh crore rupees in market cap. The Supreme Court today refused to gag the media from reporting on the Adani Hindenburg saga. A bench headed by the Chief Justice said it will not restrain the media. These comments were issued after advocate ML Sharma mentioned his plea seeking an injunction on media from reporting the case for listing and hearing by the apex court. And the big corporate story is coming in from the Zee Entertainment. Now, the big breather for Zee Entertainment after National Company Law Appellate has stayed the insolvency proceedings against the media company. The NCLAT has also issued a notice to IndusInd Bank on the plea filed by Zee Entertainment. The tribunal is set to hear the matter again on 29th of March. Ashmit Kumar joins us with the court action. Ashmit, over to you.
Indeed, for now, the relief is interim in nature. Let's keep in mind that on 22nd of February is when the NCLT had directed for initiation of insolvency proceedings against Zee as well as Citi. Now, what's important is that Puneet Goenka moved the NCLT. In fact, the arguments were heard today. The arguments that had been put forth by Zee essentially rested on two grounds. Number one is that Zee argued before the NCLT that, look, as far as the corporate guarantor aspect is concerned, Zee is a corporate guarantor not for the entire debt amount that has been taken on by Citi, but in fact only to the limited extent of tranche payments that have to be made for interest repayment. And that is the first leg of the argument. The second leg of the argument is, and this Zee argued, is a violation of principles of natural justice, which basically leads on to say that Zee was not allowed a hearing before the NCLT had directed for insolvency proceedings, that arguments were not heard, there was not a fair hearing, Zee could not defend itself, could not make its submissions before the NCLT. And this second argument appears to have struck a chord with the appellate tribunal, the NCLT holding that at no point did Zee forfeit its right to argue, to make its submissions, and that is an aspect that is bearing on the mind of the appellate tribunal, even as it stays the NCLT order. So that is very clear. The NCLT order directing for insolvency proceedings against Zee has now been stayed by the appellate tribunal. Notice has been issued to IndusInd Bank, and thirdly, this case will come up for hearing on March 29th. Now, importantly, IndusInd Bank, there are two aspects here. IndusInd Bank had asked for some form of deposit against this loan amount. That prayer has been refused. The second aspect that we'll have to watch more closely is whether or not IndusInd Bank takes the legal remedy of appealing against the stay order before the apex court. If this fight travels there, again, all bets are off. It could be more pain in store for Zee, but that's, of course, for a later date, depending on whether or not IndusInd chooses to move the top court. But for now, certain relief coming in for Zee. That big concern on the insolvency proceedings being stayed by the appellate tribunal. Back to you.
All right, moving on, emerging nations' debt vulnerabilities and the Russia-Ukraine war are expected to feature prominently on the agenda as the first key event under India's G20 presidency kicks off in Bengaluru. Finance ministers and central bank governors from G20 nations and top executives of leading international financial institutions have all gathered to brainstorm on the roles of multilateral development banks, climate financing and debt situation, among others. Prime Minister Narendra Modi called on nations to address risks to global growth due to high levels of debt in emerging economies. Ritu Singh spoke to Nandan Nilekani, who's the co-chair of the G20's task force on digital infra. Take a look.
As the architect of India's digital revolution, and the digital public infrastructure very much has been the center of the focus here at G20. If I may ask you, in your participation so far, what have been the key highlights on that front?
Well, my role here is because I'm the co-chair of the G20 Digital Transformation Task Force along with Mr. Amitabh Kant. And today, here we had yesterday a panel discussion with leaders like Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ji and IMF Chairman MD Ms. Georgieva, and the Governor of the Central Bank of Brazil, the head of the BIS, and the Finance Minister of Indonesia, Sri Mulyani. So we had a panel discussion and we talked about DPI. It was an excellent discussion. And everybody has a very thorough and sophisticated understanding of what is possible. And I think really everybody here has appreciated India's progress.
While everybody's been appreciating India's progress, India's also tying up with a lot of countries when it comes to sharing their digital public infrastructure, and we've seen that happen through UPI. Just recently we had Singapore and PayNow's tie-up. What's next in the pipeline? What kind of leadership could India provide on this front?
Well, I think I don't know about the specific tie-ups happening, but broadly the way to think about it is NPCI, where I'm an advisor on innovation, has set up something called NPCI Global, and they're trying to take UPI global. And there are three ways you can take it global. One is you can do cross-border remittance. So the example of India-Singapore is cross-border. So an Indian working on an oil rig in Singapore can send money in real time to his family in a small town in India. The second is acceptance networks, where I, with my UPI, go abroad and I can pay in a mall. And I believe that in Dubai already, in like the Lulu Mall, you can actually pay using UPI. So that's acceptance, like my credit card working elsewhere. The third big one is if countries will take UPI as their core payment infrastructure. That, you know, I don't know what's happening there. I mean, I'm not the person, but yes, broadly these are three directions.
Well, you know, that is as far as UPI is concerned. But, you know, in terms of payments itself, India's leapfrogged thanks to UPI and also because of the technology we've been using. Was there any discussion at G20 with regards to collaboration, with regards to, you know, more learnings from India that can be shared?
See, I'm not in the, you know, the inner discussions of the G20. I'm here just to present on DPI. And I can say that that presentation went very well. I mean, that seminar went very well. And there was deep appreciation of India's strategic investment in DPI.
All right, it's time for a short break. When we return, Telangana plays host to the BioAsia Summit, an exclusive interaction with Minister K.T. Ramarao on the state's blueprint for the growth of the pharma sector. Stay tuned, we'll be back.